Now we're going to take a look at the actual how-to. How do you actually begin engaging in critical and analytical thinking? What is the framework by which you can operate this mentality and generalized way of thinking? Note, when I say the word framework, it's a fancy way of saying it's a prescriptive model. It's a suggestion for how you can start tapping into this mind frame and way of thinking. So when I say framework or when I mention framework in the future, just know I mean to tap into this idea I'm about to present to you. This is a suggested model. And all of your assignments, all of the ideas you study, all of the content that you read, any type of academic content or ideas that you engage in heretofore should be based on this type of critical thinking model. You want to assess all the information, evaluate and analyze it based on these two levels of analysis I'm going to show you. The critical and analytical framework is composed of two primary levels of analysis. The first level is macro level of analysis. So we would look at every situation or phenomenon first from a macro level or bird's eye view, which is essentially a larger scale view, perception, and understanding of what you're studying or what the topic is at that time. And essentially, it's an overall understanding, but a succinct understanding. It's not getting into the weeds too much. It may involve conducting some background research, so pulling up some articles, looking through some data or some evidence that may exist to see where the conversation may be, do a pulse check on where the academic conversation may be at this point in time, what has been done, what hasn't been done. It's not getting too much into the individual variables and trends and things of that nature, but just a general gist. Conversely, the second level of analysis is micro level, or what we refer to as the local or base level of analysis. This is the heart of analysis. As I mentioned before, this is taking that overall situation, idea, phenomena, or phenomena, and breaking it down into sub-components, sub-ideas, sub-elements to the basic building blocks that comprise or affect that particular situation. And of course, this is all relative, right? It depends on what you're studying. It depends on the context of the issue or the idea, the complexity. But the idea is to be able to adopt a macro level of understanding so that you can adopt a micro level and effectively break things down into base level items that can be studied, researched, analyzed, compared. From these basic level items, you can group things that are similar, group things that are different, compare, contrast. You can look at cause, you can look at effect. And really, the essence of explaining an academic situation is rooted in comparing those similarities and differences, or looking at a purely relational stance. How do all of these items and subcomponents connect? How are they congruent? How are they equivalent or not? And so all of those different relational types of ideas you would explain at the micro level. Also, it's important that you ask the question, why? This is where you start truly engaging in analytical thinking, when you start questioning the relationship differences and when you start questioning the trends and categorical trends that start to become apparent when you start grouping items based on its base elements. At this point, it becomes necessary when adopting a micro level scale of understanding to understand context. I've said this word before in our other class meetings. One of the most important aspects of academic writing is understanding the idea of context. When we look at those two levels of analysis, macro and micro, think of the micro level of analysis as contextual analysis. That's what we will call it. It is an analysis of the context of every situation that we're going to be writing about. And so let's take a look at a definition of context here. The circumstances that form the setting for an event, statement, or idea, and in terms of which it can be fully understood and assessed. That's important because it's simply a synonymous reflection of the idea of analysis in itself, breaking down a larger scale situation, idea, or phenomena into its base level elements. Now, that does require a thorough understanding of what it is you're studying. It, like I mentioned before, part of engaging in the macro level of analysis is conducting background research. So you are able to identify what some of those subcomponents or sub ideas of a situation may be. And then you have to tap into your own creativity and start looking at the relationship and causal differences between those sub items that you see. But this micro level of analysis in terms of academic writing is contextual analysis. All of these sub items and subcomponents are elements that comprise the context of what you're studying. Context in academic writing can be thought of as all of the internal and external factors that affect blank, or whichever situation, topic, idea, concept, or phenomena you may be studying. All of these subcomponents and blocks have some impact or some type of implication on that overall situation, as it is a part of the base elements comprising that overall macro level of analysis. And so it's important to start thinking in terms of relationships and being able to think about a concept or an idea through describing those relationships, similarities, differences, etc.